do so?
Yeah, they can. I'll remind them
Oh,
to do
yeah.
that. So.
Tell them, yeah, please put up questions if they wish. And if I can find them in the little chat box, then I'll be glad to answer what I can.
We'll do that. Welcome, everyone. Happy Friday. Where I am, it's very cold and there's ice all over. But in Cincinnati, Ohio, we don't care, because if you're a football fan in the United States, you know our team is headed to the Super Bowl for the first time in 2 generations. So our city's on fire. But we're happy. And I'm also very happy today to have a very special guest. And I know the cliche is, oh, this person changed my life. This man really did change my life. I met him in 2001 at a Toastmasters contest. We bonded over baseball. We both are baseball fans who had coached our sons. And because of David Brooks, I have met so many people that is, I can honestly say I would not be in the career I'm in today. And it all started from a contest where a man walked up to me and said, I liked your speech about being a coach. And here we are, 21 years later. David Brooks, it is a thrill for me to have you on today. Welcome.
My pleasure indeed. Thank you.
And I know you said it's cold in Texas, but not quite the way it is here.
Yeah, we had a little rare ice storm Tuesday and Wednesday. And today it's almost all completely gone. As I was telling Michael before we started, in Texas, we only have 2 seasons. We have summer and the week before. And it just happens to be the week before summer starts for us. And so we're thawing out of a brief but brutal chill.
Yeah, and if you're joining us live, you can check in and you can go to the site livewithspeakingcpr.com, no spaces, live with Speaking CPR. You can ask us questions in the chat box. Let's jump into our first question, and that is, David, what is the biggest challenge that you see with business writing today?
I can answer that in one word. Emojis. No, wait. I'll give you another one-word answer. Texting.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. What about texting with emojis? Now we're onto something here. Those are the challenges that we face today that we should not. Well, let me put it this way. I do text in answer to other texts. When people text me, I will respond in kind. But I never personally initiate a conversation or a communication with anyone via text. I'm still an old school pick up the phone kind of a guy, and I would much rather initiate conversation personally than cold and impersonally through text. But I can tell you that I am proud to say I have never used an emoji, nor will I, because I consider those to be the graphic equivalent of baby talk.
Well, my response to you is LOL. Well, let's dig into that a little bit. What is the issue? If we're just sending these emoticons, emojis, and just LOLs, what's that costing us?
We've lost an appreciation for language, for the beauty of the English language. English language has more than 1 million words. Why aren't we using a majority of them? Why aren't we using the best ones? So I contend that to use the graphic shortcuts, that's just an act of indifference and carelessness and laziness. And I believe that the good writing and the good speaking, and whenever I speak of writing, you should know I'm a writer and a speech writer. And so as a result, what I say about one is pretty much going to apply to the other. So if I refer to a speaker, or if I refer to a reader or a writer, then you'll understand that these are very similar topics. See, there's a lot of people. I'm one of those huge proponents of writing your speeches. And people say, oh, no. An article is what you write. That's what it's meant to be read. But a speech, that's supposed to be heard. Therefore, it should not be written. Absolutely preposterous. The best speeches in American history are, you can tell me, there are 2. What are they?
Gettysburg Address.
Yes.
and what's known as I Have a Dream.
Exactly. Do you think for a minute that either of those were extemporaneous?
Contrary to the legend, Lincoln did not write that on the back of an envelope on the way to Gettysburg. No,
That
did
is,
not.
you are exactly right. And in fact, you can put in Google Gettysburg Address drafts, and you'll find scholarly sites where people have researched this, PhDs have researched this, and you can find at least 5 versions of the Gettysburg Address and 5 incarnations. Now, that doesn't mean he did it 5 different ways, 5 different times. It means these are the 5 steps that he went through to be able to give that speech in its beauty. And do you know how long the Gettysburg Address is?
It's been estimated it was, 2 minutes and 20 seconds?
It is, in fact, that is exactly right. It's 2 minutes and 20 seconds long. And that it only had what is it? It's 200. I'm sorry, 268 words, I believe.
Yeah,
it's 268 words. And I can tell you that there's some disagreement on the number of words because some of the versions are what people count the words, and some of the versions were longer than others. What's fascinating, though, when you look at the Gettysburg Address drafts and you see the sequence there, it's not. The amazing thing is not what he added into it as he went. It was what he subtracted. It's what he took away.
Yeah.
And that's one of my big points about writing and speaking is the importance of editing. Because the best written speeches, Gettysburg Address, for example, or I Have a Dream, the best speeches you ever heard were the best written. They were the best written because they were the best edited, but you cannot edit what you have not written.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite phrases I've ever heard from you. I love that. And our mutual buddy, Darren LaCroix, taught me that the best stories are not written, they're rewritten and rewritten and rewritten.
Now, absolutely. In fact, go ahead.
No, I was going to say your 1990 World Championship speech, which is one of the best ever in Toastmasters history. What was the final word count and what was the original word count, if you can recall?
I have all the versions that I did. I have never gone in and done the word count on them, but I can tell you that the final version was 850 words. My exact speaking time, for those who wish to know about the Toastmasters contest, you can speak for a total of 7 minutes and up to 30-second grace period. So 7 minutes, 30 seconds. And I had rehearsed it to where, with adding time in for laughter that I was anticipating, that I would speak no longer than 7:13. I knew that 7:13 was my maximum if everyone responded the way I expected them to. Mm-hmm. In the actual competition, the red light at 7 minutes never came on. I finished at 6:57. So that means that I gained 16 seconds over what I had thought was my maximum. And I was thrilled at that.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that the audience did not laugh or respond in the way that I expected. What it means is that just with adrenaline and energy, over the course of 7 minutes, I gained 16 seconds. And that's barely more than 2 seconds a minute in terms of how much faster I was speaking than what I may be now.
Doing a quick calculation, adrenaline can account for about a 3% acceleration in your speech pace.
I don't doubt that.
Okay, just made that up. Just took those raw numbers, but sounds about right. Ed Tate, on the other hand, the 2000 world champion, I think when he practiced and rehearsed, he came in at 6:40. Do you know what his final time was?
Yeah, I know what it was. I was sitting directly behind the timers, and I saw the stopwatch, so and it was 7:30. It was 7:30 on the dot.
Right. So the point is, when you write, you got to, as David says, edit ruthlessly to get to the bare message, because you never know when you're going to get an audience that laughs unexpectedly and adds time.
Yes. However, in my preparation, and again, I know we're veering off into speech and speech contests, and that may be not what you want the rest of the listeners to be hearing. So I'll.
But this is all relevant to other speeches, so I think it's relevant.
I think there is a relevance. Yes. In preparation for my contest, I studied the previous year's videotape and the previous 2 years' audio tapes. And I am not a numbers person. I am not an analyst. I do not like to chart or graph anything, but I did those speeches. And I counted every laugh and every pause and every time that the theme was restated. I counted every one of them, and I determined that this is what a winning formula looks like graphically. And so when I was practicing it, I said, I've learned by watching and listening to the other contests before, I've learned that you can count on a chuckle, just a chuckle that you get in a face-to-face conversation, one-on-one or in a small group. It barely will even register any time at all. I mean, just it's a fraction of a second.
Right.
But that same chuckle in a room of 2,000 plus suddenly becomes 2 seconds because people laugh louder and longer when they're in with a group.
Right.
And so I found that a chuckle, I had to go out and put in the margin, this is going to be a chuckle here. And so I put +2. Over in the margin, when I would say this is a good laugh, I would put +4. And if I said this is going to be a big laugh, I'd put +6. And so I would get to those spots in the speech as I was practicing it in front of small groups or even for myself. And with a stopwatch, I would force myself to look at the stopwatch and wait 4 seconds before I proceeded. So I knew what the rhythm was going to be like, and I wouldn't let the audience mess me up. That is, don't ever let the audience's enjoyment of your speech put you at risk.
Right, because you don't want to send a subtle message to them, hey, shut up, I'm up here speaking.
Exactly.
Right.
And Ed just had not fully ascertained just how good his material was. Oh, by the way, yeah, I watched the video that you sent me of Ed's presentation for you just 2 weeks ago. And it was great to see him again. He's a good guy, good friend, and I am just thrilled at his success. I can tell you, he said that you said that you were giving him a Golden Shovel Award for digging something out. And I thought, well, that's well deserved. Good for you, Ed. Now, what do I have to do to win a Platinum Shovel?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm working. I've got the golden shovel. It's waiting for you. I literally thought of that on the spot with Ed. So now it's like, all right, as soon as I hear a gem, you're in. Now, what we just talked about, yes, it was contest speaking. However, I do a lot of TED coaching, TEDx talks. Same situation. I'm working with a group right now, and they are adamant about this is how much time our speakers have. We've got the same issue. A lot of my speakers are going to have 5 minutes. We've got to create 4 minute and 30 second talks just to give them some wiggle room. So this applies not just for speech contests, TEDx. If you are a business leader and you want to go out and impact your team, go out and watch past speeches by leaders within your company. What worked, what didn't? Where were the pauses? Where were the laughs? Where were the key points that were repeated over and over? So excellent wisdom from David regarding how to study previous speeches in your world, no matter where it is.
Just graph them, just chart it and say, oh, look, he had a laugh every 30 seconds or every 45 seconds, or he restated his theme 7 times in 7 minutes, whatever it was. And you figure out, oh, here's what worked. And so the numbers just simply bear it out.
That's right. And don't reinvent the wheel. If it worked for others, it'll work for you with that audience. Now, this leads to our second question, which is, what is the biggest difference between effective written and oral communication?
Well, there's a big difference between writing for the eye and writing for the ear. And it's not something I can say, writing for the eye, you do this, writing for the ear, you do this, and never the twain shall meet. That's not the way it works. It's that when you're writing for the eye, you can use, for example, constructions and word choice that is perhaps, possibly more complicated or more detailed. When you're writing for the ear, you can't do that because if it's written, you can go back and reread. But when it's spoken, you can't go back unless it's recorded. You can't go back and rehear. So as a result, in writing for speakers, you need to be exceptionally clear with your language. You need to be exceptionally brief. You need to remember the importance of repetition plus restatement, because repetition plus restatement will help your message to be remembered. And all of those are skills that you don't necessarily need to know if you're just writing to be read. Likewise, when you're writing for the ear, you have to read what you've written aloud at full volume, at full pace. Read what you wrote aloud and just ask yourself, do I sound like that? And if you don't sound like what you hear, then the audience is not going to get who you are either.
That's right.
So the goal is to only write words that, I like to use the phrase, that fit in your mouth. Only the words that sound like you are the words that you should say aloud. Now, when you're writing, when I tell people they need to write their speeches, a lot of people make this mistake. They say, oh, well, this means I need to sit down in front of a keyboard, and I just don't think that way. That's all right. Darren LaCroix is a great example. Darren is not a speech writer. He'll be the first to tell you that. Yet Darren's speech is one of the best written speeches in that international speech contest. And he did it in a backward sequence. So I'm not saying that my way is the only way. I'm saying you might get you might find lightning in a bottle and do it like Darren did, because his mentor told him, you have to go out and write your speech. And he said, I don't do that. And he said, then find another coach. And so he said, no, I want you to coach me. And he said, okay, then fine. You go out and record your speech. Then you transcribe it. Then we'll look at it.
Yeah.
But that's what an editor does. He looks at what's on paper and he hears the internal voice before anyone else. But it has to sound like you.
David, that is advice you gave me 20 years ago. And as a coach, I have evolved. And my belief now is that the first version of our stories and speeches should look and sound nothing like the final version, because the first version is written. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. This is a theory I came up with a couple of years ago. When we're going through mental rehearsal, never memorize our speeches, internalization and rehearsal. If we keep getting stuck in one place, and for whatever reason, we're chugging along, and all of a sudden we hit this spot and we keep getting stuck and we can't remember, I think it's your subconscious telling you, you don't speak this way. Say it differently.
I like that. I agree.
Toss the script and see what comes out of your mouth, because that's
right.
Probably the better way to say it.
Right. Well, I write speeches for a number of people. I have coached hundreds, if not even well over 1,000 people in speech contests. And then in the business world, for whatever presentation they have to give, whether it's a sales pitch or whether it's a annual report, I've coached well over 1,000 people. I can tell you, when people sound like themselves, they feel good. When they feel good, the message is almost always going to be better received. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to like what you said, but they will like you for saying it well. Right. I mean, let's face it, the audience is almost always on your side. That is, they start on your side.
Right.
Except in politics. and let's face it, that's a different world entirely. Yeah. So I'm not going to talk about political speeches, and I have written some. But the business presentations that most people that are your listeners are likely to have to give, the best message is what is the most genuine from you. Even if they don't, even if you had to say, I'm sorry, we're going to have to make some massive budget cuts, even if you tell them bad news, they don't want you to be bad. No one ever comes into a room and says, I sure hope the speaker is lousy. No one ever asks for a bad presentation, but we've all heard some.
Yeah.
But instead, the listener is on your side in this way. That is, they just want news they can use in an entertaining and memorable manner. If you do that, you're way ahead of the game, and most speakers are struggling to get to that point.
Yeah, they are. It's it's difficult because they get so many different pieces of advice, and that's why one of the reasons I wanted to have you on today is just talk about some basic writing. So specific tips. This is our third question. We'll jump to a few tips, and you've given some already about how to write better, whether you're speaking or you're writing for the written version or the oral version.
Sure. I have a couple of notes here, so pardon me while I look at it, because I want to make sure that I make at least these points here. Point number one, these are what I call writer's non-rules. That is, these are rules that you might have heard before, but I'm going to give you a different spin on them. Number one is, don't ever make the reader or the listener struggle to find your point. We have a tendency to sit down in front of a keyboard and we say, oh, now I must write like a writer writes. And that's wrong. Your goal is not to sit down and put words on paper that people think I have to dress it up. Absolutely wrong. You're supposed to strip it down. So it's put your words on paper so that you can say that word is more complicated or more detailed or more obscure than what I would have said. Then you put that on paper and people will respond kindly to it. So I would like to refer to a few quotations here. Thomas Jefferson said, the greatest of all talents is never using two words when one will do. And that's editing. The next one is Longfellow said, in character, in manner, in style, the supreme excellence is simplicity. And then perhaps the best advice for writers is from Thoreau. And he said simply, simplify, simplify, simplify. Now that's great advice, but I do contend that if he really truly meant that, he could have saved two simplify.
That's true.
But he made his point and it sticks.
One of the ideas I've picked up in the last 20 years would take Longfellow one step further is never say one word when silence will do.
Oh, yeah. Well, what was geez, I wish I could think who said this. I don't want to misquote somebody. We can talk about how easy it is to misquote someone in just a minute if you wish. But it was, oh no, I'm sorry. I'm not even going to attempt to say what that quotation is because
that's okay. I hate that when one comes in there. It's what was it? No.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I'm going to call an audible here. We've gone through our three questions. However, there's a story that I heard you tell years ago that I have shared with many of my clients about the importance of preparation. People will say, well, how many times should I rehearse and practice a speech? And we've got one of our coaches at Stage Time University. He used to do a Las Vegas show over 10 years. He did it over 4,000 times. And he contends you have to do it at least 100 times, if not 200. But the story I'm referring to is probably the most last minute change of pace changing the whole attitude of the audience. And it was the day of the Columbia disaster. Could you tell our listeners where you were and how that impacted you as a speaker?
I'm flattered that you remember that. It was one of the most difficult, most challenging moments in my life as a speaker. I was doing a presentation in Arlington, Texas, and I had seen on the news the night before that the space shuttle was going to be making its return and going directly over the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And they had said, you might be able to hear it because it would make 2 sonic booms. I was setting up the room. No one else was in there. I was there about 30 minutes before when the space shuttle came directly overhead. I heard a boom, followed by another boom. And I thought, oh, somebody just dropped something big, like on the roof of the building. But then I went, no, oh, wait, that was the space shuttle. It was the 2 sonic booms. So I thought, how cool, I just got to hear the sonic booms as they're on their way to Florida. And, it only takes about like 15 minutes to get from Dallas to Florida on the space shuttle.
Right.
And so I knew that they were long gone, but so I didn't have a chance to go out and take a look. So people were beginning to come in, and I'm not listening to any news, but people are beginning to come in, and I'm overhearing chatter. I'm hearing people that are saying, the space shuttle. And I kind of chimed in and I said, oh, yeah, it's great. I just heard it. And they went, you heard it? And I said, well, yeah, I did. And they didn't understand why I was excited to say that I heard it. Because to me, this was them making a triumphant return.
Right.
To those who had heard the news, this was the disaster. And so people were beginning to go, well, why is he so excited about having heard that? Well, it was time for the program to start. And so I was the first speaker, and I was supposed to be giving a humorous speech that day. I did not have a clue what half of the room knew. The conference chair stood in front and opened the program by saying, just so you know, the Highway Department of Public Safety is saying we should stay indoors. And I'm going, why? And somebody in the audience had not heard the story, and they said, why? And she said, because of falling debris. And suddenly there's this eruption in the room. People are going, geez, I had no idea that. And that was the moment that I realized that the space shuttle had in fact been destroyed in those 2 booms that I heard. Yeah. And it happened directly overhead. And so this person primes the audience by saying, stay indoors to protect yourself from falling debris. Oh, by the way, now here, welcome our speaker, David Brooks. And it was supposed to be a humorous speech.
Yeah.
How would you? What would you have done? What do you think I should have done?
Well, I have never liked the word "should." Maybe you certainly don't want to go up with humor. Maybe just open the floor up and say, "Hey, let's talk. How you feeling about this?"
Yeah,
you got to throw the script.
Yeah, exactly. You have to acknowledge the obvious. You cannot ignore it. You cannot pretend it did not exist. You must acknowledge the obvious. And so I opened the program by saying, this caught me by surprise, as I know it did many of you. Let's first take a moment of silence in their memory. In that minute of silence, I'm thinking, do I proceed? Do I go? Do I stop? What do I do? I figured, well, you know what? I'm not going to make any assumptions about what the mood of the room is. So I'm going to ask them. I said, look, I was here today to give a humorous presentation. Do you think it's appropriate for me to do it today?
Yeah.
And most people said, well, no, maybe not. I said, okay, look, I can make some adjustments. I can make some adjustments. And yes, I may say a few things that sound amusing, but my goal today is not to entertain. It turned out to be one of the best speeches that I ever gave because I adjusted for the audience's needs on the spot.
Yeah. And the whole reason I brought that up is because that underscores the importance of preparation. Knowing your I don't like to use the word script because it sounds too staged, but knowing your material so well that in an extreme, and this is the most extreme situation I've ever heard for a speaker, you can toss it, be present for the audience and say, well, I can touch on those ideas. We'll throw the humor, not appropriate today, but just go with it. But you can't do that if you don't know your material.
And if you don't have a plan B in place, and that doesn't mean that you should ever plan on having to have a disaster interrupt your presentation, but you should be able to handle it.
Yes, exactly. Prepare for every possible contingent, and some things are unexpected. I just remembered this. I don't know how I'd forgotten just hearing you talk about this. I was supposed to do an open house speech on 9/11. Okay, a lot of people didn't show up because it was a noon meeting, but some did. And I said, look, this is not appropriate. We need to talk about what just happened here. And that's what we did. For 45 minutes, a group of strangers talked about how this immediate reaction to 9/11 impacted them.
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever went back to that group or not. I don't think I did, but I'd like to think in some way we helped each other through the initial shock of something that was so unbelievable.
Yeah.
But preparation is so critical.
In fact, Ed Tate, again, my friend who you had,
Yeah.
Ed Tate has a great line that I quote him frequently. And that is, he says, I am aware I have not seen everything, but I know I can handle anything.
I love that. I haven't heard Ed say that. I love that.
That's preparation.
It is. It is. And it's repetition and knowing it so well, you don't think about it. You're focused on the audience. Well, David, I could talk to you for hours. I won't do that to you. But because of what you've meant to me personally and so many other people, and that you just mentioned Ed Tate, you, my friend, are going to get a Golden Shovel Award. You will get this beautiful certificate. And Ed claims it's right next to his Certified Speaking Professional Award and his World Championship trophy. I trust you'll do the same.
Oh yes, it'll occupy a place of honor. But I am truly flattered by this. Thank you. That's very kind and very amusing.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, I'm going to assume they can contact you, DavidBrooksTexas@gmail.com.
Yes, my internet service provider and an internet website provider, both of them, closed recently. And as a result, I don't have a functioning website at the moment because I'm having to switch everything over to a different carrier. And so I don't have a website available at the moment, but I'm certainly eager to visit with anybody via email or phone or text, as long as you don't use emojis.
Don't lead with a text. Do not lead with a text and an emoji, or David might not. You might be writing to me saying, what's wrong with him? Well,
Yeah.
He prefaced this early. Know your audience.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend, if you're watching this, contact David if you have any issues with writing. He is one of the best writers, period, and best speaking writers I've ever met. He's been a great influence on me. So definitely take advantage of David, his time. Just don't throw an emoji his way. And I'd like to remind you, if you're watching, that if you would love to do a deeper dive into the art of storytelling, I have 52 storytelling insights. This is a weekly 5-minute audio with a PDF transcription that comes to your email inbox. The idea behind this is to build one skill on top of another rather than hit you with a fire hose of information all at once. If you'd like to sign up for those, go, and I'll put this below the video. You can go to my virtual business card, which is infone.co. That's not iPhone and that's not .com. So I'm really going to confuse it. It's infone.co/speaking CPR. You can click on the tab that says 52 Story Insights. That'll take you to where you can sign up for those. Normally I'm announcing my next week's guest. However, I may not be able to do next week. So just keep an eye on your LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube live for that. But you will have me back in a week or two coming to a live stream near you. David Brooks, again, I appreciate you more than you know. It's so good to catch up with you. We caught up last week. I was so thrilled to be on that panel with you. Glad we could talk today, and look forward to hearing more chapters from that baseball book you are producing.
Yeah, thanks. For those who might want to know what that is, I coached my son's little league teams. Actually, from the day when he first started playing baseball at age 5, I volunteered to be an assistant coach, and I assistant coached for about 4 or 5 years. Then when he became into little league, then I became the head coach, and I coached him in little league for 2 years, then in pony league for 2 years, and then even in a colt league for 2 years. And so the book is called Leadership Lessons Learned in Little League. And it's what I learned not about baseball, but what I learned about working with people.
Yes, and I've seen some of the chapters, and it's really good. And they're succinct, but the lessons are terrific. And I shared this with David last week when we were on a panel together. You never know where life will take you because of a speech. David and I met in 2001 when I was in a humorous speech contest, dressed in a baseball jersey, talking about coaching my son in Little League. David walked up to me. I had no idea who he was. I had no idea what a world champion of public speaking was at the time. I just was in this contest I was early in my Toastmasters career. We hit it off immediately over baseball, and you just never know where one chance encounter can take you in life. So,
Yeah,
David, thank you again for being with us today, and I will share your information in the link below the video when we post it, and look forward to talking with you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for having me, Mike.
Sure. Thanks. And